here. All righty. Welcome again, everybody. So excited to have you back. And let's see here. Let me make a couple more co-hosts here. All right, we're picking up on page 171. And our PDF page is
86.
186.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thank you. So PDF page 186, page of the book is 171. And we had one of those, again, mic drop kind of moments yesterday where we left off. And the devil was, we were back again to the same statistic around this 98%, of people, 2 out of every 100 actually have some definiteness of purpose. And we talked about salvation. He talked about, the devil talked about his power being that of God's power. And, we went through how he's talking about the power of the human mind that he can appropriate. And so we come back to, we're on page 171, kind of in the middle, that second or third question there. And he says, okay, we're going to get off of, because he really stepped in some religious theology here earlier. And he said, okay, well, let's get off of the churches and let's get back to the schools. And so he'll ask, he basically makes a statement here and makes several statements here. But he says that your confession has shown clearly that you thrive and perpetuate yourself from one generation to another by the clever trick of taking over the minds of children before they have had the chance to learn how to use their minds. I wish to know what is wrong with the public school system that permits the devil to control so many people. I wish to know also what can be done to the established system of teaching that will ensure all children the opportunity to learn first, that they have minds, and second, how to use those minds to bring spiritual and economic freedom. Man, first of all, that's a big statement in itself to even say, what is the purpose of school? What is the purpose of school? Hill says, how can we change what we're doing now? And he has 2 reasons for that, 2 goals: spiritual and economic freedom. Is that not, wow, first of all, wow to the spiritual side of things, because what he is doing is, that's the combination of church and state, so to speak, where the public schools would constantly be trying to keep God out of the school, okay, which is interesting to me. The fact that you want to be so strict about how God is approached in school, and we don't need to mention the name, but Lord have mercy, all the things going on in the school. And the first thing that you say is, we need to pray. You took him out of the school and you want to wait till the last minute to pray. This is why we need him in the school to begin with, and anyway, that's a whole nother story. But Hill is that saying something, there, that school should be a place where we learn spiritual freedom and reiterated in the church setting, obviously, and learn economic freedom. There is what is it about what kids learn in school now that sets them on the path to economic freedom? It's why we have a whole business, because it's not taught anywhere else. So that's a big deal. And he says, and Hill says, I'm putting the question to you definitely enough. And since you have stressed the importance of definiteness of purpose, I am here and now putting you on notice that your answer to my question must be definite. So Hill's like, I'm spelling it out. There's no way for you to wiggle your way out of this, or to be vague in any way, right? And so the devil says, he's like, wait, hold on, slow your roll. Okay, give me a chance to catch my breath. You've given me quite an order. It seems strange that you would come to the devil to learn how to live. Listen to what he says.
Jacinta,
Yes. Uh-huh.
I gotta say this.
Mhm.
You're talking about economic freedom. Do you realize what the debit card has done to our economy,
Oh,
to our children?
oh.
They're gonna balance a checkbook. They have no idea. They
Mhm.
just swipe that card, and that's. I do cash. My kids like cash. I do cash.
Yeah.
I don't let
Yeah.
anybody debit anything out of my account.
Yeah.
You have no control over when you allow that to happen. It's
Yeah.
crazy. These
It's
kids.
right. It's so easy for it to get away. I know. I remember trying to explain to AJ how the banking system worked. And like it was like it just made it makes no absolute sense. It makes no sense whatsoever that you swipe it, but it won't hit your account. And so therefore your balance isn't really your balance. And he's like, who came up with that? Like, isn't math? Math is not math in banking. Okay. But you're right. It gets so many. This is why banks can make billions of dollars in fees. Billions. That's the whole point of that.
I can't remember what year, a few years ago, Bank of America made $8.2 billion in non-sufficient fund
Yeah.
fees.
Yeah. Yeah. Is that not, yeah? I mean, what? Yeah, you're right.
And guess what? You know that new thing they're doing with the gas? Like I go to the window
Mhm.
because I used to take out cash for it, but if you pump at the pump, now they're taking a certain amount, holding more,
Mhm.
and that's what's putting people in insufficient too if they're not
Mhm.
keeping up with their accounts. It's really crazy.
Yeah, I went to the gas pump the other day, and I usually do try to go inside because number one, it's just to get to know people in Prospect, because I'm generally at the same gas stations. But I went to a different one while we were out of town, and they held $200. I mean, I had never had that much help before. It was maybe $75 or something, but they held $200 to pump gas.
Yep.
I
Like
said, what?
Myers does 127. It's crazy. Some
Yeah.
do 85, 79. You just never know wherever you pumping
Yeah.
gas.
I mean, some people I mean, what if I could not have afforded for you to hold $200? That's crazy.
Well, California, they
Costco
don't.
declines at the pump if you don't have $100 balance in your account.
Right, right, right.
In
Yeah,
California, we don't do that because if you use an outside pump, you're gonna get your card hacked.
mm, yeah. I mean, there's all kinds of ways that we can see again this issue of not dealing with, like he talks about, economic freedom, of not teaching people how do we actually go about everyday life money decisions. But here again, this is what of course birthed our whole crusade. Right. um but the devil makes a statement here, and he says, it seems strange that you would come to the devil to learn how to live. I should think you would go to my opposition. Why don't you? So first of all, the devil is diverting from the question. Okay. But then he's making this challenge to divert from the question. He's trying to get him riled up, if it was in my opinion. Okay. And Hill answers him. He says, I'm not the one on trial here. Okay. Get back to the point. He says, I want the truth, and I'm not particular as to the source from which I get it. There's something radically wrong with the system of education that has given us a balance sheet with life that shows us hopelessly in the red and groping for the road to self-determination as if we were so many animals lost in the jungle. He's just saying, man, I don't care. It doesn't matter where I get the truth from. I just want the truth. Now, I think there's something to say about, the devil giving us his version, because it allows us, again, to kind of study our enemy a little bit. And so Hill's like, I just want to know, this system is so wrong. This system has gotten so crazy. We're just here trying to figure it out, it seems like, every day. And he says, I want to know two things about this system. First, what is the major weakness of the system? Second, how can this weakness be eliminated? The floor is yours again. Please stick to the question and stop trying to decoy me into the discussion of deep, abstract subjects. That's definite, is it not? It's like, I'm using your tactics. You cannot get out of it. Okay, tell me what I want to know. And so the devil says, okay, you leave me no choice but that of direct answer. To begin with, the public school system approaches the subject of education from the wrong angle. The school system endeavors to teach children to memorize facts instead of teaching them how to use their own minds. So again, this is a repetitive theme here that we see. He's like, all you're doing is learning how to repeat information. And Hill says, is that all? He says, no, that is only the beginning. Another major weakness of the school system is that it does not establish in the minds of children either the importance of definiteness of purpose or make any attempt to teach youths how to be definite about anything. The major object of all schooling is to force students to cram their memories with facts instead of teaching them how to organize and make practical use of facts. He's like, you're giving them information, but you're not teaching them what to do with that information, how to use that information, how to think through that information. This cramming system centers the attention of students on the accumulation of credits, but overlooks the important question of how to use knowledge in the practical affairs of life. This system turns out graduates whose names are inscribed upon parchment certificates, but whose minds are empty of self-determination. He's like, you get them through the system, you get them the piece of paper, but what does that piece of paper really mean? The school system got off to a bad start at the beginning. The schools began as institutions of higher learning, operated entirely for the select few whose wealth and family entitled them to education. He's like, that's your first mistake. That's your first mistake. School really was not for everybody to begin with. There were whole ethnicities left behind in schooling. It was there, like he said, only for the select few. That was who was able to get an education. He says, thus, the entire school system was evolved by beginning at the top and working down to the bottom. It's no wonder the system neglects to teach children the importance of definiteness of purpose when the system itself has literally evolved through indefiniteness. It's like the whole system was set up this way for a group of a few, and it would work its way down when it could. No real plan there. Now, y'all remember back when this was written. I mean, I can imagine what Hill would think of the school system now. What would he say about it now? Where it began and how it evolved and spiraled, And so Hill says, well, what would correct this weakness? Let's not complain of weakness of the system unless we're prepared to offer a practical remedy with which it can be corrected. In other words, while we're discussing the importance of definiteness of plan and purpose, let us take our own medicine and be definite. So he's like, first of all, that's just a good rule of thumb. Don't be complaining about nothing unless you can bring a solution to the table. Right? We can't just sit here and talk about what's wrong. Let's talk about then how to fix it. And so the devil's like, listen, get off the schools and churches, save yourself some trouble. He's going back to this trying to dig into Hill's fear. Don't you know that you're poking your nose into the affairs of the two forces that control the world? Suppose you do show up the schools and churches as being weak and inadequate for the needs of human beings. What then? With what you're going to replace these two institutions? He's like, you understand that the entire civilized world, like we talked about yesterday, has been built on the churches and the schools. And if you take those out of the equation, what do you have left? What are you going to do? right? So he's trying to poke at Hill here. He's trying to play into that fear here again. And y'all, remember that this tactic of the enemy, because as much you see how Hill has to keep coming back and setting the devil back on the course that he, this line of questioning, because this is what the devil does. So as we come back to him he gives us this crazy thought and we come back with, nah, I'm gonna do it anyway. I'm gonna do this. I think this, I believe God's word. He'll let you go on a little bit and then he comes right back around and he starts poking again. Right? He starts giving you more thoughts, more things to think about. This is his tactic. I'm going to keep coming back. Consistency. You have to maintain consistency. That's what being definite is. Whatever thought he gives me, I keep coming back around to, what does the Bible say? What has God told me? What has God taught me? Right? And so Hill comes back to him and he's like, listen, stop evading the questions by the old trick of asking a counter question. I do not propose to replace the schools and churches, but I do propose to find out, if I can, how these organized forces can be modified so they will serve people instead of keeping them in ignorance. Go ahead now and give me a detailed catalog of all the changes the public school system, which would improve it. He says, so you want the entire catalog? Do you want the suggested changes in order of their importance? So the devil's just being facetious. He's constantly just giving us, he wants to keep stalling. And he's like, hey, however they come to you, just spill the beans. Okay. All right. And so here now we've got this list here. Okay. And the devil says, you're forcing me to commit an act of treason against myself. Like you're making me go against myself by giving you this information. So here's our list here. He says, first, this is the first thing that comes to mind: reverse the present system by giving children the privilege of leading in their schoolwork instead of following orthodox rules designed only to impart abstract knowledge. Let the instructors serve as students and let the students serve as instructors. So he's saying reverse the roles. How about we let them lead? How about we let them explore? How about we let them express? Let the instructors be kind of a guidance, not a, there were some lessons, y'all. I went to private school in my, it's kindergarten, like all the way through 6th or 7th grade. I went to a Catholic school. And I didn't go to public school until high school, my junior year of high school. No, my sophomore year of high school. But man, if y'all ever went to private school with them nuns, the mean nuns, that was a rough way to go, man. And I tell you, to this day, when we first started learning how to write, like, I am scarred for life. Because, at the time I remember being so mad about them trying to force me to make certain letters certain ways that I would purposefully, this is so bad. But I don't remember. This probably was beyond kindergarten. This maybe first grade, something like that, as we're still learning how to write. And you know how they have the lined paper and all that. I purposefully started writing real tiny. I was like, I'm going to make it perfect. It's going to be perfect like you asked, but it's going to be real tiny. And you're going to have to figure out how to read this. It was
I see at a young age.
I know it was, but I was so, because they would get so mad, and like literally it was a mental beat down when you didn't.
That was thinking, you were thinking out of the box.
Right. 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 But I just remember being so mad that they were so mad about this little, and you spent all this time of my life trying to make me do an A the way you wanted me to do an A, but So this is, these are the kind of things that Hill is addressing here. The devil is addressing. We're just trying to make them do it the way we want it done. And what was the reason? Like, my A's still don't look like that, okay, to this day. Okay. And I'm still alive. And I run a whole business. Okay. Right.
Can I ask real quick, are you scared of a ruler? Remember the old
Oh, honey. What? I mean, when one person got in trouble, the whole class got in trouble. And man, these nuns, they used to make us, now this school is not in existence anymore as it was when I went, okay? But man, if you got in trouble, they didn't just use rulers. Like, they would line up, the nuns would ball up their fists and they beat you on your back. Everybody, the whole class had to line up and get beaten on the back if one person did something wrong. Yeah.
So they're prepping you for the military. That's good.
Man.
Nope, they're prepping you for the Matrix.
Right. You're right. Yeah, that was woo.
Is there a statute of limitation on?
Honey, I don't even know. I wonder, I don't even know where them nuns are today. But we for sure, somebody in this day and age be in jail. Okay. For what was going on there. But so this starts to bring all of these things back. But so the devil says, as far as possible, organize all schoolwork into definite methods through which the student can learn by doing, and direct the classwork so that every student engages in some form of practical labor connected with the daily problems of life. So, he's saying not just learning math necessarily, but learn how does this play out in your life? He's saying, teach them about how life works and how this information gets applied to life. I saw Kevin had posted something on Facebook, I think the other day, about this class he was thinking about. He was saying, do people, you're just getting a feel for, do people need this teaching just young men, maybe from the age of 14, 15, all the way up to like 18, 19 years old, practical things like how to change a tire, how to change the oil in your car, how to tie a necktie. These are things he's just like, we just need to teach our young men, some of these tools. Well, that's life stuff. You should know how to check your oil. You should, but who teaches that? And if you don't go to the technical route in high school, you never get exposed to how to do that. You know what I mean? So this is what he's addressing here. Can we learn information, but learn it as to how it pertains to real life? Talk about real life situations.
And Jacinta, I think I sent you a while back the story about Ron Clark.
Yes.
I think that's exactly what Ron Clark, what is in his mind, and I had the privilege to go to the school to see it in action, and it was definitely quite different.
Yeah,
quite different.
Yeah,
from regular public schools.
I bet you he read Thinking Girl. Outwitting the Devil.
Yeah.
Yeah, I bet you he read it. He says, okay, ideas are the beginning of all human achievement. Teach all students how to recognize practical ideas that may be of benefit in helping them acquire whatever they demand in life. Like, teach them how to plug into and hear the Holy Spirit as you're gaining information, you're getting ideas, you're getting creative ideas. How many times does a kid, at what age in schools do they say, hey, what if we do this? What if we do that? As a young kid, they're excited to start doing those things. But just as the devil talks about, by the time they get through high school, they have no ideas. Why? Because somewhere along the line, some teacher is like, that's stupid. That's not how we do it. No, we don't do it that way. No, we don't do it that way. No, we don't do it that way. And all of a sudden, just the even thought of having your own idea becomes very daunting. He says, teach the students how to budget and use time And above all, teach the truth that time is the greatest asset available to human beings and the cheapest. What if we had a whole class just devoted to time? Time management. Man, I mean, what's the thought? Take it a step further. What if we had a class devoted to not just Chronos time, but Kairos time?
I
Again, if we had a class devoted to time, some people wouldn't have time to have the time class.
You're right. You're right. Because why? You know why, Dre? Because they were never taught about the value of time. So now they don't have time to understand their time. This kind of class seems like something that doesn't, it's not valuable. And here we see the devil is saying, nobody understands what's valuable. And time is that one thing that everybody has the same amount of, no matter what side of the tracks you came from, no matter what your skin color, no matter what your gender, we all have the same amount of time. That's a level playing field. Who teaches that? He says, teach the student the basic motives by which all people are influenced and show how to use these motives in acquiring the necessities and luxuries of life. He's basically saying, teach people how to sell themselves, how to relate to other people, how to hear what people want. How do you hear? How many of y'all have had to learn how to hear what people are saying through this business? Right? You've had to learn that through presentation, through giving a presentation, how to actually hear people, what they want, what they're looking for. How can we fill a need? And he's like, you need to teach kids how to do that. Teach children what to eat, how much to eat, and what is the relationship between proper eating and sound health. That's a big one. It's a big one. Teach children the true nature and function of the emotion of sex, and above all, teach them that it can be transmuted into a driving force capable of lifting one to great heights of achievement. He's like, using that, we don't, oh, that's a whole, we're not even going to go down that road. That's a whole mess. That's a whole mess. But teaching them how to properly understand what their bodies are feeling, the emotion, what's tied to it, what the consequences of it is, not just the physical, having a baby, getting diseases, but what is really tied up in that. Because he's saying those kind of emotions, that kind of being able to harness your emotions in the first place, being able to control those, he says, is one of the things that we can use to drive us into success. Teach children to be definite in all things, beginning with the choice of definite major purpose in life. We talk to kids a lot about what do you want to be. A lot of times they're mimicking what they see around them, though. When do you ever ask a child, what do you think your purpose is? When do we ever ask that? When do we even start to have that conversation? Nobody has that conversation until they become an adult, after they are burnt out of whatever it is they've been doing as an occupation. Teach them to be definite, he says, about their purpose. Teach children the nature of and response and possibilities for good and evil in the principle of habit, using as illustrations with which to dramatize the subject that every y'all, sorry, let me start over. Teach children the nature of impossibilities for good and evil in the principle of habit, using as illustrations with which to dramatize the subject, the everyday experience of children and adults. So he's saying here that, first of all, they need to understand what a habit is. A habit is a vocabulary word to them. But what does it mean? and understand that your habits, the things that you're developing, that this routineness in your life can be used for good or it can be used for evil. And there, he's saying, take everyday illustrations, show them things that are happening every day. You know, there's small habits. What do your parents wake up and do in the morning? How, you know, even just watching, what do your parents eat in the morning? What do they feed you in the morning? When they wake up, what's the first thing they do? Talking about these, this is all habits, and helping the child to understand and identify what that is and what serves them and what won't serve them. Teach children how habits become fixed through the law of hypnotic rhythm and influence them to adopt, while in the lower grades, habits that will lead to independent thought. He's like, teach them early how to develop the right habits, because if you get them in these lower grades, they come out of my reach. This is when, remember, the devil says, this is when I love to get them in that hypnotic rhythm, because they don't know any better. They're ignorant. They have no clue what a habit is and how that becomes something that makes them drift. Here's a big one. Teach children the difference between temporary defeat and failure, and show them how to search for the seed of an equivalent advantage which comes with every defeat. Teach them how to see defeat and failure, temporary defeat. What if you had learned that it was only a learning opportunity from the very moment you got that first red mark on your paper? Right? You know, the very moment you lost the whatever game you were playing, whatever sports you were participating in. How do we teach them it's only temporary? And then when you do stumble, go back and look at what you can learn, or what is the thing you can gain out of this thing. Teach your children how to do that now. It is so, so important. Think about the things that you struggle with as an adult, how hard you struggle with just those things right there. And that should tell you how important it is to teach the next generation. He says, teach children to express their own thoughts fearlessly and to accept or reject at will all ideas of others, reserving to themselves always the privilege of relying upon their own judgment. Basically helping them develop confidence in how they think and how they feel. You know, not questioning whether just because I'm a kid, I probably don't get it. You know, and to not have, there's a fine line of being able to have this, you know, them say, okay, I see that doesn't seem right to me, and feel confident even if an adult is saying, do this this way. You know, this is how children can fall so prey to to abuse, especially things like sexual abuse from adults. When you're taught to just follow whatever an adult says, then, and not to think for yourself, if they're telling me to keep this a secret, something's not right, maybe I should do something about this. You know, these are lines of thought that, again, they're not given the empowerment to think for themselves. Teach children to reach decisions promptly and to change them, if at all, slowly and with reluctance, and never without a definite reason. So he's saying, don't let them just drift. Be definite. Come up, make a decision. Don't just whiffle waffle, just make a decision, and learn from the decision. Right? Teach children that the human brain is the instrument with which one receives from the great storehouse of nature the energy which is specialized into definite thoughts. That the brain does not think, but serves as an instrument for the interpretation of stimuli which cause thought. This is a huge statement right here, because there was not a ton of study on the brain. There was studies on the brain going on during this time, but not thought in the brain. Like the brain, up until just really, kind of recently in neuroscience, did they have people come to say the brain doesn't do the thinking. The brain just, it's kind of the pathway in which the thinking comes through. Meaning that the brain itself doesn't think on its own. It's an instrument. It's an organ. Okay. And this is what he's saying here. He's saying, help them to understand that the brain is receiving information and interpreting information. It doesn't stand on its own. meaning that a brain that sits outside of the body is not receiving thoughts. Okay, y'all get that, right? And so this is what he's saying. It serves as an instrument for the interpretation of stimuli which cause thought. That means that your thoughts are not fixed. That means that it can be changed. That means that you don't come here with a certain pattern of thinking in which you have to always stay in. It is changeable. Like Dr. Leaf says, you can do brain surgery for yourself on your thoughts, and that's what he's saying. Make sure the kids understand that this thing is just interpreting, just like how, your eyes don't actually see, your eyes are interpreting, okay, light reflection. So the body is the tool. It's not the driving factor, though. There's something that sits outside of that. That's your spirit. That's your thoughts, your soul. He says, teach children the value of harmony in their own minds, and that it is attainable only through self-control. Again, all of these are huge statements. And if you think about it, there's nothing about these things necessarily that are addressed in school. He says, teach children how to have harmony in their own minds. What do you do when you start having that first anxious thought when you get ready to go take a test? How do you call your body into alignment? What if we started teaching those kinds of tools? How much medication would we be able to get rid of as adults if we learned how to address harmony in our own mind, that you even have the power to do that at a young age? And he says you can only do that by self-control. Teach children the nature and the value of self-control. Self-control, control of the impulses that the body would say, let's go do this, let's go do that. Or that the mind would say, fear-driven responses, things like that. How do you, and that really, all that is, understand, self-control is the spirit being first. That's how you have self-control, because the mind, will, and emotions, which is the soul, will run rampant. The body will run rampant if not directed. So in order to call those two things in alignment, my spirit must be first. My spirit has to come ahead of all of those and say, nope, this is how we operate. Because remember, we are spirit, soul, body. That's how you have self-control. And he says, teach them the value of that. Teach children there is a law of increasing returns, which can be and should be put into operation as a matter of habit by rendering always more service and better service than is expected of them. Live, not just, this is living not just in your potential, be up and beyond it, continuing to pull yourself to a higher standard, holding yourself to that. Teach children the true nature of the golden rule, and above all, show them that through the operation of this principle, everything they do to and for another, they do also to and for themselves. Treat others the way you want to be treated. Teach children not to have opinions unless they are formed from facts or belief which may reasonably be accepted as facts. And here he's addressing things like superstition ignorance. Those are the things that he talked about earlier, in which when people think through that kind of stuff, that's something that gives me an opportunity to claim them. So he's saying is teach them how to form their opinions based on truth, based on real facts, not based on things like superstition. Okay. Let's see, we'll finish up this page right here. Teach children that cigarettes, liquor, narcotics, and overindulgence in sex destroy the power of will and lead to the habit of drifting. Do not forbid these evils, just explain them. He's saying he knows the trick of the children. If you tell me I can't do it, what are we gonna do? Hence me writing in tiny letters on my paper. Right? Tell me I can't do it, I'm just gonna go. And that is not an explanation. He says, explain to them, help them to understand, right? And then teach children the danger of believing anything merely because their parents, religious instructors, or someone else says it is so. Again, teaching them to think for themselves, teaching them to be able to decipher through, file through information, how to research for themselves so that they can come to their own conclusion. Those are all big, in themselves. If you were to take this list to the education system, I'm curious as to what that reaction would be. And most of them, it would be a pushback. No, what do we need? And you don't realize, but I think most adults would still they would understand still the same complaints as we become adults. These are, you cannot deny the things that we fight as adults to try to learn, to try to figure out, to try to deal with. These are the things that trip us up and make us stumble as adults. You can't deny that. So why not start earlier? But people, the whole institution, it is what it is and how they want it to be. So, all right. So we're a little bit past 11 here. We'll go ahead and stop right there and pick back up on it tomorrow. Anybody have any
Well,
thoughts?
I'm gonna speak like with the state of Georgia. There'll be a lot of testing people out of a job because we know that Georgia loves testing.
Mm-hmm.
And especially with the different standards and so that they have brought up in this thing about this teaching facts and figures and all like that. And how many of us have been in a math class and we've asked her, okay, will I use this when I get out of here?
Mm-hmm.
I think we all have asked the question, but it really didn't matter. As long as you put the right answer,
Mm-hmm.
On the piece of paper, then you pass and you get your certificate and everybody claps for you. And, and then you're on your way and you go out and you say, I really didn't know,
Right.
or I really didn't need that right there because
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know how to use it. But anyway, that's the point. But I tell you, this list, when I first read it and even now, it kind of fits into what I really as on my dream board, because I was in the education system and seeing the young people, and I guess deep down, I mean, it's way deep down, but it's there. I have an interest in the middle school.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wait a minute. Sorry. Flashback. But anyway, with the middle school students, and that's a very interesting, because it's like, they want to be a kid, and then again they want to be grown too.
Mm-hmm.
And they're kind of slapped in the middle, and should I, and they're trying to find themselves. So I see it as a very critical age, but I want to develop like a mentorship program that would incorporate what we're reading right now, to help them. And so anyway, that's on my dream board,
Mhm.
and this is where it came from too. So
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah.
that's all I have to say about that, at least for right now.
Yes, yes. Amen. Yes, go ahead, Linda.
Just with what Don's saying is in a program out here in San King County, I was one of the founding members for Hire Me First. And these were kids that we got from 11th and 12th grade to help them after they graduated. Just through my own kids, the experience that I couldn't understand even when I was with the school district, explaining to them junior high or middle school is not the time to give kids independence. They still need their parents.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
what I saw the problem with these kids is you go from elementary school where you have to be there for the spaghetti dinner that night for your son or daughter, or during the day, there's the Dr. Seuss read-a-thon, and then you have the DARE program for the kids. Once they get into junior high, these kids are barely going through puberty, and they need still their parents to be advocates. I say the parent's supposed to be an advocate for their children, and they just set them free and set them loose. And I had trouble with my kids because the school was trying to teach them one thing, and yet they're coming home and they're realizing, no, what mom says is what's going to happen. And if there's a problem, mom needs to go to school to talk to the school, because I didn't want to be their friend. This is where the whole process of the friend situation started up.
Mhm.
Parents do not need to be friends to their middle school children. They're going through puberty. They're kids, but they think they're adults, but they need the grounding, but understanding, and still having their parents be their parents, their advocates, to be able to come to mom and dad and say, I'm feeling a certain way. Why? Or the school's showing me this way, but you teach us in our house, we're not allowed to do. See, you still need that. Then by the time they go to high school, the high school wants to know, and you would hear complaints from the teachers, and we get around saying, well, where'd all the parents go? The high schoolers need their parents because they're getting ready to go to college. They're getting ready to go to the workforce, and we can't get the parents in. I told them, the problem is you pushed us out in middle school. And so we get used to those couple of years. Okay, the kids are going to be independent. And then you're wondering where they're at in high school. And that's where you have a lot of trouble with these kids in high school now, because then they don't know what they're doing and what they're not doing. And it is important. And we did take all these things away that were everyday necessities: home ec, mechanic, wood shop, just the basic standard stuff. I had 11-year-old, 11th grader and 12th graders filling out an application. They didn't know what an application was. They didn't know what a signature meant. They didn't even know what cursive meant. And all I saw in the school system was, well, we don't want to leave Johnny behind because we don't want to offend, his self-esteem is very important. We've been so concerned about their kids' self-esteem, and we don't want to leave them behind because they're not ready. That now we've got all these young adults out there that don't know if they're coming or going because we don't want to hurt their feelings. We're all about feelings now in society. And so the solution, and I know that's just venting, but the solution came to mind when Don was saying putting a course or something in the schools. These colleges, actually, you could take a course for whatever you want in college. They kind of the junior colleges. I would love to see the Outwitting the Devil course for these college kids, because that's really going to be, that's kind of like the only answer I can think of. How young we can get them would be college would allow this. And it's positive that the college still allows certain courses that aren't as, they're unorthodox when it comes to the school system of how they have things. It's just that's something to really think about. That's where we can help these kids, the college courses.
You're so right. You could totally take a whole semester on this book completely, easily, easily. Go ahead, Jess. You're on mute.
Just to piggyback off of what Linda was saying.
She was so excited too.
Huh? Just to piggyback off of what Linda and Pastor Don was saying is, even like with us in the middle school, we were like one of the only parents that would go when our oldest was in middle school, to the parent teacher conferences, and the teachers were so appreciative. They were like, I was like, okay, what time slot do I have? They're like, it's open. And I'm like, what do you mean it's open? Like, we had a time slot in elementary school. And so we would go, we would be one of the only ones, if not the only ones, even in high school, even to this year, where, we pretty much, we're in the school, they know who we are. And Alexis hasn't been in school in forever. I mean, they've been homeschooled since before COVID. And so this is the first year that she went in, and still they know who we are. But, and that they think that's weird. Like that, they think that's weird, that why are you here? They can do it themselves. And then fast forward to when when Top turned 18, and now they go to the doctor, and we can't go with them. Right. So we can't go with them anymore. But I'm like, but we're paying the insurance, and you expect us to pay, but you ain't going to tell us anything. And they want these kids to fill out this stuff, to where Tatiana's FaceTiming me inside of the office. And she's like, Mom, and this was hilarious, but she's like, Mom, I'm having to fill out this paperwork, and now they're asking me if I have sex. And I was like, what? And they're like, it's sex. And then I said, well, what does it say? And she says M or F. And I was like,
oh, bless her heart.
that you're a female child, you're a female, but that's how crazy that I filled out everything for them, everything. So it didn't even dawn on her that sex meant male or female. She just said M or F, what do I put? I'm like, you're a girl. It's hilarious. Just like, just for little things like that we don't even think about, that we're doing to our own kids, like, and even now, she's 20 and she'll call me for, hey, they're asking me this, and this. I'm like, girl, you should know this by now. You've been having to fill this out since you were 18, But so you're right about that. You're right about that.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I remember, I think I probably shared this with y'all. I don't know if I did. This was a couple years ago now. When AJ had got caught up in one of these scams where they would send you checks to cash, and try to get you to send. He had no clue. It looked like a job offer from his school. It had the school's letterhead, and it was like an assistant to this teacher who wasn't gonna be in, and he just needed you to take these checks. And I was like, and he called me because all of a sudden his bank account was negative because he had received, cashed the check, and he was finally, I was like, what don't it, and it made me start to think about, I'm like, how did I not prepare you to even spot this? How did I not? And then I said to him, I was like, why didn't you tell me this when you first got this? But he's thinking he's on his own. He's he's an adult at school. He's trying to handle it. He was getting him a little part-time job while he's up there at the school, just doing some on-campus work. It was so, but in my mind, I'm like, I can't believe that how could I have not prepared him for this? How could he have fallen for this? But then I had to go back and think, at what point would he have been taught this? Taught how to spot this, taught to look for this, like at what point, and it's the same, like we just don't, just never thought, just never thought. So yeah, I totally feel you, Jess. It's, you think about once they become adults and have to start doing some of this stuff, it doesn't dawn on you the things that they didn't know, and then I had to think, like, how did I learn? When did I learn this? But I don't know. It was a whole different situation though for me. But anyway, go ahead, Rhonda.
Well, in your defense, times have changed. We didn't growing up, we didn't have to address things like that. So
Yeah.
that's why you didn't know how to prepare for that. Scammers are scammers, they keep scamming. But just to piggyback off what everyone else said, one, I know my father has passed away, but I have to thank him because my father sat us down and talked to us, and some of the stuff that Outwitting the Devil, he did train us that way. He trained us to be outside thinkers, and Father, wherever you are, thank you for that. And as far as Linda, the schools, you're absolutely right. So I had the privilege of staying home, raising all my children. I have 4 children. My oldest one's 35. My youngest will be 25 in 2 weeks. And I got to be in their schools. And you're right, when they got into high school, they did not want me there. But you know what? I said, look, I showed up. You know, it used me being there. I showed up, I volunteered. In doing that, I have 1,800 kids that call me Mama Rhonda. Because I was the only parent there on that high school campus. And I kept them in check. I made them pull their pants up. You know, that's when sagging first, pull your pants up. You're gonna respect me and all this stuff. So sometimes, well, my husband did too. So when my husband did pass away, he had over 1,000 people at his funeral because of what we poured into those kids.
Amen.
Talked to them. We didn't discipline them. We talked to them, explained to them why you should do things. So they still call me to this day and ask me questions. Sometimes when they come home, their parents say, "Is my son over there?" Yes, he's at my house. They come home from college and come to my house first. One, because they're gonna get a hot meal. 2, I'm gonna talk to them, not discipline or not scold them, because you know, Linda, I know you said they're not your friends, but once you raise your children, once they become 18, they need to become your friend. They need to know they're safe to come and talk to you and be able to ask you questions. So we had a rule in my house: if you say something that I'm not gonna like, say it. I'm gonna walk away until I calm down. I'm gonna come back because I don't want to be yelled at you. Or write me a letter, stick it on my pillow. So sometimes I'm like scared to go in my room because there's been no in my bed. I'm like, Lord, what is this?
Yeah.
But you do have to give them a safe place to come home to talk to you, because they do have questions. They don't want to feel like you're gonna scold them or, you know, discipline them in a way that they're grown now. They are grown. You want them to know that they have a community, and you are their community. You're their parent, but you're the community now. You installed into them what they need to know, and you have to trust that they know it. If you install God in them, they know it. And if they have questions, they need to become, no matter what it is. Now, sometimes my daughters will tell me, so I say, I don't need to know that. Don't, I don't want to know that part. Don't tell me that part, you know. But they need to be safe. They need to know that they come home and talk to you and tell you anything. I mean, that's just my opinion, but it's worked for me so far.
Yeah, well, I think you're talking about 2 different times in life. You know, Linda is talking about as they're young. When they're young, there's discipline, you know, there's those things, but definitely when they do become of age where they are responsible, like, you know, I'm like this, hey, they can arrest you and I can't do nothing about it. Okay, that's what you need to know. Okay, I can't do nothing about it. Mama can't do nothing at this point. When you come to that age, that then it becomes, you know, it's just like kind of in business, you become coach, then you're coaching more so. You're on the sidelines now saying, hey, remember this move, remember this move, remember this. I taught you that. Remember, this is how you use this. This is how you use that. And it does. The relationship definitely evolves, you know, to that as you know, as they become adults in that situation, you know. Go ahead, Lakita.
I'll be cracking myself up. Sometimes I raise my hand, sometimes I just blurt out. Sorry about that. But a few things. One, I do remember when having my babies, especially Nyla. She's my oldest and she's 11. And you know, when raising your kids, sometimes when you're looking at how majority of the world does, and then you feeling like you in this close circle, I remember thinking like, man, am I baby so much to the point that she doesn't know how to do certain things? And look, she's 11 now. And then I was like, you know, God had to rest on my heart that that's your baby. She's your child, you know, and you're a parent. You're there, you know. I blessed and I have had her young, and not saying that some young parents raise their babies great, you know. So I'm not taking that away, but sometimes we find ourselves comparing when they're younger, because there are kids that I see that are my child's age and they are moving like adults. And it used to make me think that I was sheltering and holding my child back. And I was like, why am I feeling this way? But yet she's a true 11-year-old. And, you know, I can rest in that. And so that's a blessing. And I learned a lot of that through this group and us even reading the book. But I had a conversation. So field day was in my son's school last week, and Nyla had it this week. And so I prepped my kids. I'm like, all right, it's field day. Now, when y'all compete, we don't give up, we don't quit. If you first, cool. If you in the middle, cool. If you at the end and you dead last, you finished the race. You know, I'm putting this stuff in there. I was like, you don't give up. And I was like, and if for any reason you stop, it's only if you see somebody that has given up and you go and pull them across the finish line with you, right? I'm just preparing them for this day, right? So excited about it. So then yesterday we had the conversation because this week was TJ didn't come talking about field day as much, and Nyla had her. So I was like, how was field day? I was like, Nyla, did you compete? She was like, oh no, we didn't compete. We just went outside. I was like, y'all just went outside? No competition or nothing? No, not at all. T, how was it? Did y'all compete? No, we didn't compete. I was like, well, the sack races, you're not supposed to give up your teammates, you know. He was like, no, everybody wins. I said, come on. You know, part of me, you need that healthy competition because these kids, that's how they learn. And here I am prepping the kids to go in, don't give up. But you know, the move, and they ain't even having no competitions or anything either. So it made me think about that. But when I tell you, it's amazing. These kids, they don't come with a manual at all. But there are times, you know, that you just like, oh my goodness, I hope I get this together. But look, I praise each and every one of you all because y'all, I'm going to be a bad sister when it comes to parenting because I have my tribe that are dropping the gems, and this is how we learn. And I am so excited because my babies are still young. So I'm telling you, I'm going to be killing the game. I'm so excited about it. Holy Spirit knows what we need. So I thank each and every one of you all for sharing how you all have raised your babies, because I'm gonna take what works and I'll throw the rest of it out to the side. But at least I have a manual, you know. So thank y'all for that.
Amen. You're so right. You know, I mean, before you even have a kid, because I know I remember getting ready to go home with AJ for the first time, you know, leaving the hospital. And my thought was, wait a minute, you're sending me home like with a whole human, like a whole live person, and not one person came in here to talk to me about what to do. Like your goal,
Yes, ma'am.
keep
That's
them
correct.
alive.
That's correct.
Keep them
Yes, ma'am.
alive. That's what you do. And that's about all the instruction you get. Like we need a whole Outwitting the Devil Parenting 101. You know, at least give me a crash course while I'm in the hospital. Like somebody do something. You know, I remember that thought of being just completely scared and thinking, this system is insane. This system is crazy. Who thought this up? Right? That you just take a kid home. You've never had a kid at home before.
But it's brought that up, you know, because I've heard you tell that story before about how you were afraid to take the baby home. I remember when we were packing up to leave, you know, after Tatiana was born, and they were like, all right, mom and dad, you know, you guys be safe. And all I could think about was, I don't know how to drive a car with a newborn baby. I was terrified. And we only lived like 5 minutes up the street. It was the longest 5-minute drive I've ever taken in my life. But I was like, man, is it the same speed? Is that like a baby speed limit that I'm supposed to roll at? Like, do I need to stop a little further away from the red? I was terrified.
Right.
It's funny. I wasn't even thinking about when we got him home. I was thinking about, man, how do we get him home?
Get to the house. Right. I totally understand.
That's so funny. I felt the exact same way. I had never even held a newborn baby when I had my first child. I never babysat or anything. I'm like, oh Lord, who's going?
Yeah.
Mom had to come stay with me for a whole month.
Go ahead, Linda.
And just a little funny, you don't even have to qualify to have a baby, do you? You don't need good credit. You don't need a down payment. You have to go through all the steps to buy a house, to buy a car, all these big ticket items. Our children are the biggest ticket items.
Right.
No manual. No, and I learned not just a couple years ago, unfortunately too late, Deuteronomy, there's your manual for everything in life. Deuteronomy. But yeah, you're right. We don't, even the Lamont class never teaches you about
No.
back labor, because I had back labor and I was still waiting for the front pains, never had it.
Wow.
So that tells you something, tells you how our system's backwards, a little bit
Yes.
backwards.
I think that we're just going to start, you know, how I told y'all before, I said, you know, years ago, before I even thought about an accelerate, you know, that God had said to me that church should be like school, you know, that, and that I would, it's like I saw this place where people would go and they could learn about everything that they needed to learn about the way they needed to learn it, you know, and that if you needed help in business, you could come. If you needed spiritual guidance, you could come. If you needed, you know, like it was all encompassed. It was just this all one thing. So maybe that's what's happening right now is we're going to have an accelerate pregnancy class. We're going to have an accelerate parenting class. We're going to have like all these little branches off of, we're going to do some classes. Okay. And yeah, maybe that's what this is all about.
I don't feel weird about that. You know,
Yeah.
we can have a pregnancy class. I'm
Yeah.
fine with that.
Good. Thank
I need
you.
I need an old lady class. I need an old lady class.
And we're going to have an accelerate menopause.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, y'all going too far now. I'm gonna close my ears. But a couple of things I have to say, right? Because back in the day, I dealt with kids after school. At one point, I was an education coordinator and some other hats. So what I realized is that these kids aren't taught to think for themselves, right? They aren't taught critical thinking skills. They aren't taught to pretty much live in harmony with each other, and they aren't taught how to really plan out their life. So the kids I would receive after school, it's kind of like every single day I would have to reteach them things, right? And they were also taught that you can do whatever you want, say whatever you want, you can get away with it, right? Like speak back, throw things at people. So I would have kids doing push-ups. If you curse in my presence, you will be doing the push-ups. Girls, you would be doing push-ups too, and some jumping jacks. All right. And the main thing is that we have, like, these kids now, you really, really have to pray over them, because the education system was not created to for them to be independent. It was created for them to be cogs in the system. And I don't mean to be crass, right? But as long as we have this prince of the world, right, of this world, um, pray over your kids, because how they are educated, right, today, and taught today, uh, they're being led to certain lifestyles that aren't conducive to a fulfilling life, right? So this is like a timeless work, because he pretty much laid out what we see right now, right? And that's it. Pray over your kids, right? Even the older ones.
Yeah, you know, I think, and I know we're running over time, y'all, but you know, I think when we think about what is going on with the kids, I think we also have to look at the parents and how they got to that place themselves, you know, because could it be that the parents, they're overwhelmed because they're trying to work 3 and 4 and 5 jobs. They're barely making, they were never taught how to be economically independent. They're in jobs that they don't want to be in. They're not living in purpose. They don't know how to deal with fear. They don't know, you know what I'm saying? And so it just, like the devil has laid out for us in the book, it is his cycle. It is his cycle. So as the things that we can say are filtering down, and all of this is going on with our children, and the parents aren't involved, but the parents aren't involved because they've been having to deal with all of these other responsibilities of life and never been equipped to do that either. And that cycle just continues, over and over again. And so thank God for Outwitting the Devil, because it is that one of those disrupting kind of things that you can do to change the pattern, to be able to identify what's happening and be able to change the pattern, and step in and make a difference. Yes, Rhonda.
Just real quick, in the state of California, your child is worth $47 a day. If the school system could collect $47, they could care less if your child went to school every day.
Gracious.
Sorry, your child's a dollar sign.
Good gracious. Yeah. We're gonna do it though. We're gonna do it. We're gonna do it, y'all. We're gonna change it.
Yep.
I said, I was talking to, there was a few people, and you're right. You're so right, Pam. Whoever was on when we first got on the call, and I was saying that, oh no, it was Linda. I was talking to Linda, and she was just saying how, she had been sharing Outwitting the Devil with other people, and, different folks, trying to get them to listen to, at least read the book. And I do that every chance I get to every pastor I talk to, everything, Don, I remember I told you about the book before we ever had any of this. I think before you were even in business, I told you about that book. It's, but I said that as much as I'm so excited to see everybody's excitement about the book and how you are sharing this experience with other people just outside of this, and who knows, who's listening in on the replays, because as the devil said, that he said many times in the book, that if it's only going to take one generation, if people really galvanize this information, if they get behind it, if they start to disseminate it, if they start to really get into it, he said it'll take one generation and I've lost everybody, and I said, it's exciting to me to see how we share. Maybe we become that group that is the catalyst for changing, generations, and we could do that. Right. Amen. All right, y'all. Well, hey, I know we're a little bit behind, but we're going to pop off here today. We will be back, picking it back up on tomorrow. Love you guys.